Hello, my name is Tom Ankner, and I'm the director of the Charles F. Cummings New Jersey Information Center at the Newark Public Library. Today I'm going to be doing my presentation for you, New Jersey Resources at the Newark Public Library. Just a little background of the New Jersey collection. It was organized in 1929 as a separate collection, although we had been collecting New Jersey-related resources since the library was established in 1889. The collection was established as a separate department in 1951 with its own reading room. That was after a big renovation of the main library in the early 50s. The department serves libraries around the state, and we are used by genealogists and researchers across the country, as well as a handful of international callers as well. Just a little background on the person who the room is named after. Charles F. Cummings was a librarian, and he was the official Newark city historian beginning in 1988. He first came to the Newark Public Library in 1963, and he ran the room for almost 40 years before his death in 2005. A few months after his death, the room was named after him. This is just a look at our website, npl.org. To get to the Charles F. Cummings New Jersey information part of the website, you go to npl.org, you click on Collections and Services along the top bar, and then you go down to where it says Charles F. Cummings New Jersey Information Center, and you will come to this page. So on the last screen, we saw the website of the Newark Public Library. This is the digital archive website of the Newark Public Library. This is where you would go to see objects in our collection that we have digitized. This will look very different in a few months. We're currently changing platforms for our digital archive, but this is what it looks like right now. I want to begin by talking a little bit about newspapers in our collection. First of all, the Newark Evening News. This was a newspaper that was published from 1883 to 1972. It was, in its day, the largest newspaper in New Jersey and generally considered the best newspaper in New Jersey. It stopped publishing in 1972, and a couple of years after it ended publication, we acquired the archive, the morgue of the paper, both the clippings morgue and the photo morgue. Now, just talking a little bit about the clippings morgue, this consists of 3 million news items arranged by subject. Subjects include prominent people, institutions, places, companies, different items having to do with Newark and with New Jersey, and also some international and national items, although we didn't microfilm most of the national and international items. This was microfilmed several years ago, and we have an index of the subject headings available at npl.org. The microfilm is available for view anytime you come into the library. And we can also download items from the microfilm for you. If you find a subject heading you're interested in, we can download the items from that file and email them to you. In addition to the clippings morgue, we also have yearly indexes to the Newark Evening News. These indexes were begun in 1914, and they go until the paper folded in 1972. They are handwritten. They were compiled by the newspaper staff. Every day they would go through the paper, and they would make notations of noteworthy articles that they felt should be included in the index. And so these are a terrific resource for anyone doing 20th century New Jersey research. There are indexes to names, which we use for looking for obituaries. There are also subject indexes and geographical indexes by towns in New Jersey. If you want to find out if the Newark News did an article about Newton in 1952, you can look in the 1952 geographical index under Newton, and it would refer to any articles the paper, any noteworthy articles the paper did in that year. They are most popular for genealogical research. We use them, as I said, for finding obituaries. The obituaries are indexed in these, but not the death notices. So even if we don't find somebody's name in these indexes, if we have an exact date of death, we would look in the microfilm for the death notice, since the death notices are not included in these indexes. This is just a picture of the wall of indices. These are the Newark News indexes that we have, that we use all the time, and that are one of our most treasured resources at the Newark Public Library. Just an example of how you would use the Newark Evening News indexes to find an article. This is an article about one of my ancestors. Gustav Yorick was my great-grandfather's brother. He was a police officer in Newark, and I knew from getting a death certificate for him from the state archives that he had died in 1934, but I didn't really know much else about the death, so I looked his name up in the 1934 index of the Newark Evening News, and I found a reference to this article. Apparently he was standing on a street corner waiting for a streetcar, and he dropped dead of a heart attack. That was on, I forget what date this, I guess it was in August of 1934. So this kind of adds a little color to my family story, little story to add to my family tree. Another example of how you can use the Newark Evening News indexes to find information. This is the story of my grandparents' engagement. My grandmother was Rosemary Yorick. She and my grandfather, Frank McGarry, were married in Newark on March 2nd, 1935. This story appeared a few weeks earlier on February 11th of 1935. It was announcing their engagement. It was accompanied by a lovely picture of my grandmother at age 25. I want to talk a little bit about the Newark Evening News Photo Archive. These are 400,000 black and white New Jersey images that were taken between about 1920 and the early 1970s. They are images of local and state subjects and include a large collection of biographical photos, photos of people. These photos can be scanned for a fee. So that's the Newark Evening News. I now want to talk a little bit about the Star Ledger. We have Star Ledger microfilm back to 1939. We have a database that covers 1989 to the present, plus another database that we're using temporarily that goes back to actually 1945. We've been using a lot recently. Charles F. Cummings compiled a card file index for the 1970s and 1980s. This is an index by subject to the Star Ledger, at least prominent stories in the Star Ledger, not everything in the paper. That card file index, or part of the card file index, is online at our catalog at this address. We also have clippings of the obituary and death notice lists from 1971 up through 2007. That is the list that ran in every day's paper, saying what obituaries and death notices appeared in that day's paper. Some other newspapers we have, in addition to the Star Ledger and the Newark Evening News, we have other daily papers back to 1832. That includes the Newark Daily Advertiser, which was published from 1832 to 1907 and is a corporate predecessor of the Star Ledger. We also have select New Jersey papers back to the late 18th century, including the Sentinel of Freedom, which was a Newark paper. A list of all of the 98 papers in our collection is available on npl.org. If you want to know if we have a paper, you can go to that list and it will tell you. Some of the historic newspapers that we have, just to let you know that we have a paper called the Washington Whig from 1815 to 1820, the Sentinel of Freedom, which I mentioned before, we have from 1796 to 1820, and the New Jersey Gazette we have from 1777 to 1786, and these are just a few examples. We have other papers as well. Some of the current newspapers that we have available, we have the Bergen Record on microfilm from 1962 to 2010, and the Jersey Journal on microfilm from 1957 to 2011. We also have a short run of the Atlantic City Press from the mid 80s, and we also have a couple of years of a Trenton newspaper. I forget the years now, but we do have a few other 20th century, 21st century newspapers as well. We have a few non-English language newspapers that were published in New Jersey or are published in New Jersey. One is the Luso Americano, which is a Portuguese paper. We also have the New Jersey Freie Zeitung, which was a German paper that was published in Newark in the 19th and early 20th centuries. We have it on microfilm from 1880 to 1930. Some of the special interest newspapers we have include the New Jersey Afro-American from 1941 to 1988, also the Newark Herald, another African-American newspaper published in Newark, the Jewish Chronicle and the Jewish Post and the New Jersey Jewish News are all papers we have in our collection, as well as the Italian Tribune. In addition to others, these are just some examples of some of the special interest newspapers we have in our collection. Now, we've also digitized several newspapers that are available through digital.npl.org, mostly community and special interest papers, smaller newspapers, including the New Jersey Herald News, an African-American paper that was published in the 30s and 40s, and through the 60s. We have just a handful of issues of that. Another paper that we've digitized is the Trilingual Ironbound Voices, and the New Community Clarion, which is a paper published by New Community Corporation. Those are all available on digital.npl.org. In addition to newspapers, we also have city directories at the Newark Public Library. We have a large collection of city directories for communities across the state going back to the late 19th century. The focus is on northern New Jersey, but we also have several communities in South Jersey and Central Jersey as well. We have them in both hard copy and microfilm, and a full list of the city directories available in our collection is at npl.org, our website. Newark city directories we have in both print and microfilm from 1835 to 1964. We have also digitized all of the Newark city directories except for 1964. Those are available at digital.npl.org. Here's a page from the 1915 Newark City Directory. I looked up some of my ancestors, the Heurich family again. I looked and I found this is from the digitized 1915 directory. I see there is Anna Heurich, who was a corset maker who boarded at 71 Magnolia Street. That was my grandmother's aunt. Charles P. was her father. He lived at Halstead Street in Vailsburg. Gustav was my grandmother's uncle, her father's brother, and Margaret was her grandmother. Margaret was Anna's mother and Charles and Gustav's mother as well. The city directory tells you not only where people lived, but also in some cases what they did for a living. So Charles and Gustav were both policemen. And Margaret was the widow of Primus. It tells you if women are listed, sometimes tells you who if they were widows, who they were widowed from. We also have a collection of New Jersey phone books on microfilm for communities across the state from 1908 to about 1990. Those are available in the New Jersey room. We also have print phone books for Newark from 1972 up to the present. We also have a collection of crisscross directories going back to the early 1970s. We began getting these when the Newark City Directories stopped publishing. One of the things you were able to do with the Newark City Directories is that you were able to look up people by address rather than by name. And once the City Directories stopped publishing, we lost that ability. So these crisscross directories have restored that ability to us. We have the Newark crisscross directories back to 1972 and the suburban Essex County crisscross directories back to 1974. I'd also like to talk about our map collection. We have more than 2,500 maps, both historic and current. We have maps for both Newark and for New Jersey. These include Sanborn maps on microfilm for communities across New Jersey, and Newark Fire Atlas maps from 1868 on. Those are the Sanborn maps are also fire insurance atlases, but we also have other fire atlases that were produced in the late 19th and early 20th centuries for Newark. We have a large collection of digitized Newark maps at digital.npl.org. We have digitized most of our Newark maps except for the Sanborns and some other specialized maps that we were asked not to digitize by the city of Newark. Here's an example of a flat map that we have digitized. This is an Essex County map from 1889. Nice colorful map that you can see at digital.npl.org. and this is the 1860. This is a page from the 1868 atlas. We have fire atlases for Newark going back to 1868. The fire atlases are nice because they show structures. If you want to know if there was a building on a piece of land, you can see that by looking at the fire atlases, and it will tell you what type of building was there, whether it was a brick building, a stone building, a wood frame building. These we have beginning in 1868 for Newark, and we have digitized the non-Sanborn fire insurance atlas maps from 1868 to the 1920s. In addition to maps and photos and newspapers, we also have an information file. Some libraries call this their vertical file. We call it an information file. It's a clippings file. It consists of more than 4,000 clippings folders arranged by subject. We, unlike some libraries, are still maintaining our information file. We still clip every day. We clip the Star Ledger. We clip some other local papers. If we see something noteworthy in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or some other national publication, we will clip those stories. We have a Newark and New Jersey information file. We have a current and historic information file. Historic is generally before 1970. Current is 1970 and forward. There are a number of articles that are kept in the clippings file, including obituaries for people of local and statewide prominence. And there's a list of subjects for the information file available at npl.org. If you want to know if we have a subject on a certain, if we have a folder on a certain file, you can look in that list at npl.org. Our picture collection, we have some of our picture collection is cataloged, about 35,000 images, prints, illustrations, postcards, photos, and books. These are arranged by subject. They're Newark subject, they're a New Jersey subject. We will scan these for a fee, and the catalog pictures are indexed in the illustration index, which is available on our catalog page at that address. Part of the photo archive is the Star Ledger photo archive, which we acquired in 2014 when the Star Ledger sold its building in Newark and moved to Woodbridge. They didn't want to take their hard copy photos with them, so they gave them to us, and so we now house them. These photos cover the early 1970s to the mid-1990s. There are at least 1 million images. There are about 200 boxes and 36 filing cabinets filled with photos. These can be scanned for personal use by the library staff. If you want to publish these photos, you need to get the permission of the Star Ledger, and once we get their permission, we will be able to scan them. Just an example of some of the photos that we have available. Here are some Newark photos. It's a picture of Bamberger's, the old department store in downtown Newark from 1935. And then this picture on the bottom is a picture of President Kennedy on a visit to Newark in 1962. That picture of President Kennedy is from the Newark Evening News archive. Here are some New Jersey photos that we have available. This is a picture of Hillside at Christmas time in 1951. And then on the bottom, there is a picture of Edison, dioxin cleanup taking place in 1983. The picture of Hillside is from the Newark Evening News, and the picture of Edison is from the Star Ledger. There are also personal photos available in the photo archive. We have biographical photos through the Newark Evening News and some biographical photos through the Star Ledger archive. These are pictures of everyday people that appeared in the paper at one time or another. And in many cases, these photos were retained by the newspapers. If they were, then we would still have copies of them. This is a photo of my great-uncle, my grandmother's brother, Charles Hurick, when he was a young man in 1944 during the war. And for some reason, they ran this picture in the paper. The Newark News ran this picture in the paper in 1944, and they retained it in their archive, and so we have it now. And when I went looking for family photos, I was able to find this as well as a few other pictures of him. So if you have an ancestor who might have appeared in the paper for a promotion or a graduation or some other event that they might have appeared in the paper, you can contact us, ask us if we have the photo, and we'll look in the archive to see if one is there. We also have archives and manuscripts collections in the New Jersey room. We have Newark and New Jersey collections. Finding aids for the collections are available at this address. newarkpubliclibrary.libraryhost.com. Also, these appear in our library catalog at that address. It's best to call ahead when using. Most of the archives boxes are kept in storage and need to be retrieved, so it's best not to just to show up and ask to see a collection, an archives collection. It's best to contact us ahead of time. We've digitized many of our archival collections. They're available at digital.npl.org. These include personal papers, correspondence, memoranda, press releases, articles, and many other items. In addition to archives and the other materials we also have a collection of documents, including state documents. We've been a state depository since 1980. Although we have state documents going back to the mid-19th century, we began collecting them long before we became a depository. Most of these documents are not cataloged, but we have a card file index to them. So if you want to know if we have a document or you want to look at some documents, you could call or email us and we can look for you and let you know. We can either make copies of the documents for you or you can come in and look at them. Some of the other documents, in addition to state documents, we have New York City documents, Essex County documents. We have a collection of quasi or Q docs for non-governmental organizations. Most of these, like the state documents, are not cataloged, so again, call or email if you want to use them. We've digitized some of our New York City documents. They are available at digital.npl.org, including documents for the Newark Housing Authority, the Newark Human Rights Commission, and the Newark Central Planning Board, as well as several others. We also have minutes of the City Council meetings for several decades available at digital.npl.org. We also have the New Jersey state censuses available on microfilm. These were done every 10 years in the years ending with 5 from 1855 to 1915. We have a ward index for Newark addresses for these censuses. We also have the microfilm for the 1875 Essex County portion of the state census. Most of the 1875 state census was lost, but Essex County retained its portion. It was later microfilmed, and we have the microfilm. Some of the state censuses are also available online at Ancestry.com or FamilySearch.org. All of the censuses from 1885 to 1915 are available online, but we also have them on microfilm. Few other sources we have a collection of Essex County slave records, which we've digitized. Those are available at digital.npl.org. Those are manumission records for enslaved people who were freed, the documents that were filed when someone was freed. In addition to that, we also have a full run of the Genealogical magazine of New Jersey. We have name indexes to the Genealogical magazine of New Jersey, which cover up through the mid-70s. And we have proceedings of the New Jersey Historical Society back to 1867, in addition to many other things. These are just a few examples of things we have. A few other genealogical sources we have available. We have Mount Pleasant Cemetery burial records. We have indexes for World War I, World War II, and Korean War dead from New Jersey. The index for World War II is only partial, but we have more complete indexes for World War I and the Korean War. We subscribe to Ancestry.com, and anyone who comes into the library can use that for free. During our COVID-19 closing, we are making it available on our website as well. A list of other genealogical sources is also available on our website, npl.org. And that concludes my presentation. Here is our contact information. It's best now to reach us via email, njreference@npl.org. You can also call us, 973-733-7775. I'm checking email regularly. Once we reopen, you can visit us in person at 5 Washington Street in Newark. We are at the northern end of Washington Park, near where Broad Street and Washington Street come together. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I hope to hear from you soon.